Hello, Mr. Zonker here. Have you ever heard the phrase, there's more than one way to skin a cat? Yeah, that's a little gross. But the point is, there's often more than one way to do something. And we're going to look at 3 different ways to solve equations. You might have done some of these before, but it's a good idea to be familiar with all of them, especially going into our next types of equations we're going to solve. So first we have rewriting. This involves rewriting the equation in a simpler way, like distributing, combining like terms, anything that rewrites it in a different way. Undoing. This is when we use inverse operations to isolate the variable. Those inverse operations, like if it's plus something, you subtract it, multiplying something, you divide, etc. Lastly, looking inside. This is when you look at a variable and what it is grouped with and basically think of what that group needs to equal. If you solve equations in your head, this might be something you do frequently. To help us see the difference in all of these methods, we're going to take the same equation, 5 parentheses x minus 1 equals 15. And while some of the methods might overlap, we'll kind of get an idea of what each one is talking about. Let's start with rewriting. Here we've got 5 times x minus 1 equals 15. So if you were going to say, hey, let's distribute that 5 to get 5x minus 5 equals 15, that would be the method rewriting. From there, we could kind of solve like we might normally solve. Add 5 both sides, getting 5x equals 20. Divide by 5, and we'd get x equals 4. Now, this other part is actually a method that falls under undoing, but this first part, distributing to rewrite, is rewriting. Let's go over to undoing. So we know we used a little bit of that here, but what if we didn't want to distribute? We can actually take this 5 times x minus 1 and divide by 5, and that 5 is going to cancel out, leaving us with x minus 1 equals 15 divided by 5, 3. We undid the multiplication. Here, we're going to undo the subtraction by using the inverse addition, and we'll get x equals 4, which is the same thing we got in our first method of rewriting. Lastly, looking inside, here we want to look at our separate groups. We've got 5 times this group, x minus 1 equals 15. Well, if I looked inside here, I could say that I know 5 times 3 is equal to 15. Therefore, this x minus 1 has to be equal to the 3. X minus 1 is equal to the 3. So I'm going to take that equation and say x minus 1 equals 3. And from there, if we use our inverse, we do a little undoing, we'd get x equals 4, which is the same exact solution we got in the other 2 methods. All right, this was a brief introduction. We'll kind of see in our next coming lessons on how we can continue using these to help us solve different and more complex equations. I hope this video was helpful.